Hello everyone, and welcome to the second in BOMA's Online Marketing Made Easy webinar series. For anyone who missed the first session, an introduction to marketing, you can find the recording on our BOMA Marketing YouTube channel, and we're uploading the sessions as we go. For anyone who did miss last week, we talked about how to construct a robust marketing platform, and in particular the tools and the skills that you will need to use to do that. We went through in particular creating a strong foundation, and if this looks a little bit like a temple, that's exactly what it is. If we start at the bottom left and we talk about the brand, and then go along from left to right, we talk about how to be found online, talking about your website, content marketing, social media, and then as we go up from the foundation, we talk about your audience and who are they, what interests them, and how do we reach them. The pillars in particular are the content, so it's the messages that you would like to talk to your audience, whether they're current clients or prospects about. And then putting that all together, which is your brand, what does it stand for, and as a customer, why would I seek you out? So my name is Charles Clark, and I look after the marketing at BOMA, and it's my great pleasure to welcome our CEO, Ian Christie, with us today. Ian in particular has a great skill set, really relevant to today's branding focused session. He spent a long time in many global agencies and leadership positions around the world. So what he doesn't know about branding isn't worth knowing. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you. Thank you, yes.
So I know everyone's really busy, and we are trying to keep these just to 20 minutes. So Ian, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, Charles. Essentially what we're going to do today is essentially walk you through these steps that take you from, well, I've got a piece of a brand, a logo, something like that. How do I actually shape that and take it to the next step in order to get me along the marketing journey? So what I'm going to do today is talk about the difference between a logo and a brand. So physically and visually, they're exactly the same thing. But essentially what I'm going to go through today is explain a little bit about what is a brand, why you would need one, what are the elements that make up that brand, how you can create your own brand, and what the next steps are going to be with that. So essentially the definition of what is a brand. Well, I guess if you read any marketing literature, there are probably thousands of nuanced definitions of what a brand is, but fundamentally, it's a symbol that represents a customer proposition. So essentially, a proposition is effectively where you want to get to, which is, what do I mean to my customers? How do I matter? Why am I important to them? And what do I stand for? So if you like to think of a brand as actually a piece of shorthand for a much longer story. And so what I've got here is a few examples of how people over the years have been able to craft a story that actually ends up being a shorthand. So essentially, Coca-Cola could have spoken about their fizzy liquid and what makes it up and why it is what it is, but essentially all they've done is talk about refreshment. So when you see Coca-Cola, it means refreshment. This is exactly what shorthand for a brand is all about. Rolls-Royce, another very easy example to understand. Is it just a car, or is it actually a social statement? So in Rolls-Royce's case, that they don't really want to talk about a car, they want to more talk about a lifestyle. And with Nike, they could talk about the functionality of their shoes, the way they're produced, how robust and tough they are, Or is it about that whole just do it ethos, which is the footwear that the champions wear? And then Nespresso, coffee machine or style statement. Again, it's a piece of functionality. It's a machine. Doesn't actually look that pretty. But when you put someone like a George Clooney against it, suddenly you're starting to talk about style statement. And if you put the setting in Italy, then that all is wrapped up. Then you're not just looking at a coffee machine, you're looking at a style statement. So those are some examples of where people see a logo, they actually then understand a story that's attached to that logo. So why would you need one? Well, as I've said, it creates that shorthand story. But the thing is that you'll be asking yourself, well, what is my story? What are the sorts of things I want to be known for? Do I want to be seen as smart? Do I want to be seen as easy to deal with, efficient, local? Do I just want to appeal to the people that are in a very small distance from my office? Or do I want to go upmarket and be seen as one of the more expensive operators? Essentially, there are no firm rules about what you stand for. You can essentially make up whatever you want to stand for that is relevant to your business. And often you can just make these statements one sentence or one word like I've listed here. You don't need to be very, you don't need to get too specific about it. You just need a sort of a general area that you feel that you can work with. So essentially, the other thing that's really important is that your strong brand and your target audience, or the people that you want to talk to and the people that you want to attract as customers, what you need to work out is, can I tell this story in a cost-effective way? And that's also really important too. Like some of the examples we had previously, the Coca-Colas, the Rolls-Royces, the Nikes of the world, they're large brands with lots of money and have built up those stories over years. But don't let that put you off. You also build your own story using the media that is the most relevant to you, and also in the places that will serve you the best. So don't be put off by those big brands. You too can have your own brand that talks to your own audience and says the things that you want to say. One last point about it is that essentially all of those examples before were essentially quite emotive stories. So again, the functionality of the Rolls-Royce, the makeup of the liquid in Coca-Cola, those sorts of things were really not rational. They talked about the emotive things. We'll talk onto that in a second. So anyway, next slide. What makes up a brand? Okay, so essentially you've got quite a few things that go into this brand. Firstly is the logo and the actual design itself. And hopefully you're getting the idea now that a brand is more than just a logo. It's the things that you put around that logo. The other thing that's really important in creating a brand is making sure you understand who your target audience are and you match your story to them. So essentially, if you understand that your target audiences are tradespeople and you really just want to focus on those people and become the expert at serving those people, then that will give you a big steer as to the type of brand that you will end up creating and what you'll be creating around it in the way of stories and information. Also, be local. I think that's really important, that reflecting some sense of locality is a big plus, because oftentimes, even though people use the internet to do business from a long way away, they also like the idea that there is someone that they know that is local and that they can trust. There's an implicit trust of that localness. Also, you've got to take a long-term view as well. I think that what's important for you to understand is that if you create a brand and you build a story around it, and it's about what you do, who you do it for, and where you do it, you basically need to take a long-term view, that you're not going to get the reaction overnight. You need to just be consistent about your story and always keep that story in everything that you do. Also, though, having said that about the emotive part of a brand, there's also a lot of rational aspects that you need to understand as well, which is essentially, what do you do? So essentially, let's just take an example again of the accountant or bookkeeper for tradespeople. You know, what do you do? You're a bookkeeper. You are for tradespeople. You are available 7 days a week. You live at X street, or you work out of X street. You are a certain type of person that's had, let's say, 20 years experience. And how you do it is that you've got this amazing piece of cloud software that you get your customers to hook up to. So essentially, if you just take those very basic statements, then you're able to actually start to form a picture that someone would be interested in, to say, okay, those are things that I believe will serve my needs, and it's said to me in a very succinct way. We talked before about the emotional aspects, you know, the why, the what's the payoff, and so forth. And if you start to get into media, so if you're running an ad in your local magazine, it might be a trade magazine, or in your local newspaper, or on your local radio station, essentially what you want to do is put into your brand a wee bit of that emotion, and it could be humor, it could be drama, all sorts of things. Those are really important pieces of a brand, particularly if you're taking it into media, or you're taking what we call content or communication. So essentially, creating your brand, you're going to need some core ingredients. And these are really important. And actually, a lot of these are akin to your business objective as well. And you'll see that over time, you'll see how much, particularly when we talk about the website design with Grant in the next session, you'll start to see that how some of the aspects of your brand and your message and the things that you talk about will actually then start to come to life in a website. And so these things are very easy to talk about, but very hard sometimes to commit to a piece of paper or on a text on a web screen. So I believe that these are the 6 core ingredients that you need to keep in mind when you're moving forward to creating your brand. The first one is your overall objective. And there are many ways that you can measure this. But I think that what is most important is that you do actually have an objective. Or else if you don't, you will find yourself walking down the path that's fairly open-ended, and you won't even know whether you've actually reached your destination. So firstly, your overall objective, is it to grow your brand or grow your business? And if it is to grow your business, then you have to be really, really specific about how you create your brand. Because you'll be talking to people who have never heard of you before, and people that are unaware of your existence and don't know what you do. You have to be very specific about, if I'm going to grow my business, then my objective is to make my brand very specific to that audience. But the other one could be to nurture. It could be the case of saying, actually, I'm very happy with the customer base that I have at the moment, but what I'd like to do is to engage with them more, and I'd like to sell them extra services. So in marketing terms, we call that nurturing. And so if you akin to the plant where you're the person that tends to the plant and pours the water on it to make it grow. So essentially, the messages that you are sending out are the water that makes the plant grow. Another objective could be to build a profile. It could be the fact that you are neither, you don't really mind about growth, you're really happy with your client customer base, but what you want to do is actually stand for something. Maybe it's that you have, you're a very competitive marketplace where you are, and essentially you believe that if you can just have a larger profile, then people will engage you more. The other thing that you need to have is a logo designer. If you haven't got a logo already, or you want to have a new logo, you can obviously look at someone local, but also we recommend that you can use a lot of internet-based crowdsourcing services, which is where you go on to someone like 99 Designs or Upwork, and you essentially type into the box what you want. I want a logo for my business. You fill out some online forms about that, and you will get people who will come back to you and essentially bid for your business. And for a nominal fee, you'll probably get a handful of logo recommendations, and that can set you on your way. So really, really do recommend you check that out. Then akin to the sort of overall objective is something about the story that you want to tell. Now, by story, I don't mean a long drawn out commentary on what you do. It really, the story in marketing terms can be an offer. So an example of that could be, I'm going to do your year-end accounts for a fixed price, buy this, offer only open until the end of the week type thing. You can talk to them about a specific skill you have. There might be an area specifically that you specialize in, and you want to actually be known for that. Or it could be something as simple as a local connection. So pick me because I'm from your neighborhood, I'm around, I know the people, and that's what's important to me, and I'm sure it's important to you. So that story that you want to tell can have various aspects to it, but you'll find that if you actually look at what you can provide and where you are and the sorts of things that you're really good at, you can quite quickly create a profile for yourself that could be wrapped around a story that you want to tell. And then a core place to tell it. So essentially, there are many, many media outlets that are available to you today, and print, radio, online, social media are just some of them. And depending on, again, how much money you want to spend or how much trouble you want to go to in getting your word out there, you can do something very simply around just on your own Facebook page. You can also do something very simply as send an email to your customer base and talk to them about what you stand for and what you're about. It doesn't always have to be created in the media world. You can do it. And in fact, one of the things is word of mouth, is that you can create your brand here and essentially use that story for when you're talking on the phone to people. That's a form of media, And that's a very effective way of getting your story across. So essentially a time frame and a budget. Time frames are really important because you need to really know that within 6 months you say, I want to reach my objective, or I'm going to look at it on a much shorter time frame or a much longer time frame. So that really leads you down the path of, are you going to do something consistently all the time? And so something consistently could be a small ad in the local newspaper, a small spot on the local radio station, even just a flyer in your local shop. Those sorts of things are really important to know. Are you going to do it over a long time like that? Or are you going to actually say, no, I want everybody to know my story within a period of 6 weeks? And I guess we would call that a blast, where you go out and use some sort of aggressive way of talking to people. Again, there's no right or wrong. You can do either of those. It's just that you need to really set yourself a time frame, set yourself a budget, and make sure that you stick to it. And then the last piece that's really important is the analysis. Did you achieve your objective? And that, again, goes back to the key point, is that your overall objective is to grow, nurture, build a profile, whatever it happens to be. Would be great in the end if you could say, I started with 6 customers, I ended up with 10 at the end of this project, or I had 10 customers, I managed to sell them 2 new services each, for example. So the next step is essentially, if you're going to embark on creating a brand for yourself, the first step is to write a brief. And basically the way I like to do this is essentially write a press release for you in 3 years' time. So essentially, let's just say you were trying to get your local paper interested in writing a story about you, and you had to convince them that's what it was. Write the article yourself, and write it in the future. Write it for could be 3 years, it might be 6 months, could be a year, whatever the time frame is. But it's a very good exercise to write that and review it with that in mind. Also, look at the assets you already have. Make sure your logo is your logo suitable for what you're trying to do. If you're going to all this trouble to get out and build a profile with yourself, you might look at your logo and go, maybe it's not up to what I'm doing, maybe I need a new logo for that. And then once you've done that, send your brief to the graphic designer, either through 99 Designs or Upwork, or for someone around the corner that you know. Essentially, get them to understand what you're trying to achieve. And oftentimes, if you've committed it to a piece of paper, and even if it's in the form of a mock article, that's going to really give the person a good idea of what you want to achieve. Then you need to think about who the audience are, where's the best place to reach them, and then select your media of choice and start telling your story. So social media, online, all of that stuff, a lot of it is free. So essentially, it's a lot easier than you think to start getting out there and starting to tell your story.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Ian. I hope you all found it useful. If you have any other marketing related or branding related questions, I'd recommend going to the marketing resources section of our website that has a ton of articles and insights and blog posts on branding and many other related topics. And you can find that at www.bomamarketing.com/marketing-resources. We look forward to seeing you for the next session next week. As Ian said, we'll be joined by Grant Johnson. He's the founder of Rocket Spark, and they specialize in building websites for accountants and bookkeepers. So I think that's going to be a really fantastic session. If you haven't registered for that session or any of the other ones you can see on the slide today, you can go onto our website, and on our homepage, there's a link to register for the sessions. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining us, Ian, and we look forward to seeing you on the next session.
Thank you.